Welcome to the Desert Scene with Bonnie G from the Mutual Broadcasting System, where we explore the vibrant world of arts, culture, and entertainment in the desert. Join us as we uncover the hidden gems and shining stars that make this arid landscape burst with creativity. Brought to you by El Portal Mexican Restaurant in Cathedral City, where authentic cuisine meets affordable prices. Diving into the desert oasis of talent and inspiration, here's Bonnie.
And welcome to the Desert Scene. Happy to have you here, and very happy to welcome to the show today Turner Classic Movies host Dave Karger, who is going to moderate a really fun event coming up May 25th at the Palm Springs Cultural Center. Hi, Dave. How are you?
Hi, Bonnie. Nice to meet you.
You too. So this is the 50th anniversary of the film, the cult classic, The Day of the Locust, benefiting the Palm Springs Cultural Center May 25th. So tell us a little bit about this event.
Yeah, I was so happy to be asked by my friend Michael Childers, who worked on the film and was the partner of the late director John Schlessinger, who, of course, is also known for Midnight Cowboy and many other films. Michael asked me to help out with this event that he's been planning, and it is a 50th anniversary showing on a big screen, as this movie is meant to be seen, of The Day of the Locust, a really out there, ahead of its time film from 1975 starring Donald Sutherland and Karen Black. It's this really kind of cynical take on old Hollywood. It takes place in the 1930s, follows a bunch of people trying to make it in early talking pictures Hollywood. It's debaucherous, it's fun, it's got beautiful cinematography. I think the audience will really enjoy seeing it on a big screen. And there's going to be some special guests there, not only Michael Childers, but also Peter Bart, who, of course, is a very well-known studio executive and journalist. He was the studio executive at Paramount when the movie was being made. And one of the actors is going to be with us, too, Pepe Serna. So it should be a really wonderful event. And I just love being able to help introduce classic movies on a big screen.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, big screen is really helpful. So tell us a little bit about your gig at Turner Classic Movies. How long have you been doing that?
So I started as a fill-in host on TCM in 2016, 8 years ago. At the time, Robert Osborne, who was the original host, the great Robert Osborne, he was still alive, but he was ill. So he was unable to film. I had been on TCM with Robert years before, and he gave the blessing for me to be his stand-in host while he was unwell. Unfortunately, he passed away in 2017, and I remained a guest host at that point. And then in 2018, 6 years ago, I was made an official host on TCM. So there's 5 of us that are hosts on the channel: Ben Mankiewicz, Alicia Malone, myself, Jacqueline Stewart, and Eddie Muller. And it's really been the highlight of my 30-year career working for this network. I absolutely love it, and I know how much it means to a lot of people who rely on it for comfort and for a feeling of nostalgia and for giving new context to some of these classic films.
Now, were you a huge classic film buff before you got this gig?
I was. So I was born in the early 70s, so I came of age in the 80s, with films like Say Anything and The Breakfast Club and a lot of the 80s films. Then when I went to Duke University in the early 90s and started studying film, that's when my film professor had us watch some movies like Laura. Laura from the 1940s was kind of my gateway classic film, and I just fell in love with everything about it. And that set me down this path of loving not only contemporary films, but also classic films. So when I got to co-host with Robert Osborne in 2007, it was a big thrill for me, and it kind of led to, as I mentioned, this job that I have now. But that's one thing that I love about what I do, is that I get to have fingers in both sides of the film industry, films that are out today and films that came out decades ago.
What do you think is, in your view, what is the draw? What are some of the things about these older classic films that just draw people in?
Well, I think it is a sense of nostalgia for some people who grew up watching these films when they would come on late at night or in the afternoon, when they got home from school. But also I think for younger people, it's really interesting to see how these classic films have maybe influenced some filmmakers today. And at TCM, we, as often as possible, try to interview filmmakers. I just shot a segment or two with Kevin Costner. He has a movie coming out next month, so that'll air at the end of June when his new movie comes out. And he talks to me about how several classic films inspired his new movie, Horizon, a Western that he has coming out next month. So I think it's really great for people who love today's films to to also look at films of the past so that you can see what the influences were and how film has evolved. Plus, there's just so much glamour with the old movie stars, especially from the 30s, 40s, and 50s, right? I mean, I just love watching Gary Cooper and Cary Grant and Betty Davis and Katharine Hepburn. Is just something about that old class of movie stars that just doesn't exist today.
Yeah. We're going to take a really quick break. We're here with Dave Karger talking about the 50th anniversary of the Day of the Locust. We'll be right back on the Desert Scene.
Craving a delicious meal that won't break the bank? Look no further than El Portal Mexican Restaurant in Cathedral City. At El Portal, we pride ourselves on offering family-friendly dining with affordable prices on our authentic Mexican cuisine. Owner Victor Lupercio and his dedicated staff make you feel like part of the family. Whether you choose to dine in, take out, or opt for delivery, you can always count on fresh, mouth-watering dishes that will transport you to the heart of Mexico. Enjoy discounts throughout the week and explore one of the Valley's best selections of tequila to complement your meal. Join us for live entertainment on Friday evenings and consider El Portal for your next special occasion with our catering services. Visit eatatelportal.com for more details and discover why El Portal Mexican Restaurant has become a culinary gem in the desert. El Portal, located 1 block south of Ramon on Day Palm and Via Olivera.
And we're back talking to Dave Karger. He is moderating a big event May 25th. It's the 50th anniversary screening of the cult classic, The Day of the Locust, at the Palm Springs Cultural Center. So let's back up a little bit, talk just a little bit more about your career. Did you always know you wanted to go into broadcasting?
I wasn't really sure, Bonnie. I grew up loving music, TV, and film. I knew I wanted to do something in that world. I just didn't know what it was going to be. When I was in high school and college, I did print journalism, and I was the film critic for my Duke University newspaper. And when I graduated college, I got a job entry-level answering phones at Entertainment Weekly magazine. So I spent the first years of my career as a print journalist. I actually stayed at Entertainment Weekly for 17 years and got to travel the world and write 50 cover stories on any movie star you could ever imagine. I got to meet them and interview them, and it was great. At the same time, on the side, I began doing some television work here and there, guest spots as like a movie expert on CNN or The Today Show. And I started on The Today Show in 2000. I can't believe it's been 24 years, but it has. And that led to a regular spot. So I've done that show about 215 times over the past 24 years. And that kind of set me on this path to being more interested in exploring an on-camera career. So I left Entertainment Weekly 12 years ago, worked at a website for a couple of years, which was a bit of a stepping stone job to the TCM job that I have now. So no, the short answer is no. I never thought I would be on television, but I absolutely love it. It's been great fun.
And now I understand your first book, 50 Oscar Nights, was published earlier this year. Tell us about that.
Thank you for asking. Yes, I decided to write a book. It came out in January. It's called 50 Oscar Nights. It's a book that's published in conjunction with Turner Classic Movies. And for the book, I did new interviews with 50 Oscar winners, from Rita Moreno and Mel Brooks all the way through Steven Spielberg, Julia Roberts, Elton John, Nicole Kidman, about the day that they won their Oscar. From the moment that they woke up to the moment that they went to bed, what do they remember about the day, what they decided to say, who they decided to go with, how they celebrated, how it feels all these years later when they think back on it, and where they keep their Oscar. So it's kind of like a cross between a regular book and a coffee table book. It has a lot of really beautiful archival pictures in it, but at the heart of the book are these 50 new interviews with these iconic people talking about what it was like to actually win an Oscar.
Who was the most interesting or your favorite interview in that book?
I really loved talking to Sally Field. We talked about the first year she won an Oscar for Norma Ray, and it was a fascinating experience for her because she was dating Burt Reynolds at the time. He wasn't very supportive of her career. The movie got accepted into the Cannes Film Festival, and she said, I'm going to go to Cannes with this movie. And he said, you don't think you're going to win anything, do you? And she ended up going to Cannes and won Best Actress there and won every Best Actress award that year, including the Oscar. But then she also just told some great stories about partying. She went to this party at Spago. She thought the party was over because people were leaving, and she walked in, and she was looking for a place to sit, and this guy stood up in the corner and said, hey, come sit with us, and it was Cary Grant.
Wow.
So she finds herself sitting with Cary Grant and Audrey Hepburn at this party. She just couldn't believe it. So she was full of great, fascinating stories, and I just loved how honest and candid she was.
How about Rita Moreno? I've always loved her. She's kind of a pistol.
Oh, she was amazing, and she is the longest to go winner in the book because she won for West Side Story in 1962. She's not the oldest person in the book, but her Oscar was the longest to go. And she was such a spitfire. She tells a great story about encountering Joan Crawford in the wings backstage, and Joan Crawford just hogging all the spotlight from her. And she famously gave a very short speech, Rita Moreno did. She basically just said, "Good Lord, I leave you with that. Thank you," and walked off. Yeah. And she told me that she kind of regrets that because she feels like it was a bit of a wasted opportunity to talk about representation and the importance of, a Latina actress winning an Oscar. So I let her have that opportunity to kind of give that speech, if you will, in the book. But she was a delight.
Yeah. And she did she talk about her wild affair with Marlon Brando?
Not in this interview. I really, for this book, it was really kind of confined to that day. Right, but I know she's spoken about it before, and isn't that fascinating? Yeah.
Now, I'm not going to ask you to name names, but in all the interviews that you've done with these big stars, have there been many times that you've been disappointed that somebody was either had an attitude or wasn't as interesting as you thought they were? And you don't have to name names. I'm just curious.
No, I mean, honestly, not really, because I'm sure you feel the same way. When someone comes on an interview show or agrees to do an interview or is in person in front of an audience or there's a microphone in their face, I feel like they are putting their best side, in front of me. It's funny, I talk to friends of mine who are executives or producers, and they'll say, "Oh, I don't like that person. They do this and that." And I say, "Wow, I've never seen that side of them," because they turn on the good side for me.
Yeah.
And I'm sure maybe the same thing happens to you. I think when there's a microphone put in their face, they are actors, But I do think for the most part, the people in this book, they said yes. The people who probably would have been bad interviews, especially
say no,
book, probably said no.
Yeah. Okay. Well, that makes sense.
Everyone was pretty great. Yeah.
All right. So let's talk about this evening again. So it's May 25th at the Palm Springs Cultural Center. It's the 50th anniversary screening of the cult classic, The Day of the Locust. VIP meet and greet 5:30 p.m. Film Q&A 6:30. Screening 7 p.m. Eventbrite, I believe people can get tickets.
Yes, Eventbrite. The tickets are available. Just search The Day of the Locust and you'll see it. It's going to be a really wonderful night. I'm looking forward to it.
And Michael Childers and Peter Bart and Pepe Serna, and of course moderated by TCM host Dave Karger. Thank you so much for being here. Really lovely chatting with you. Appreciate it.
Great to talk to you. I'm a proud Coachella Valley resident, so it's a pleasure to be on this show.
All right. Thank you. Excellent. All right, Dave Karger, thank you. And we'll see the rest of you the next time on The Desert Scene.
The Desert Scene is a production of the Mutual Broadcasting System and is sponsored by El Portal Mexican Restaurant. Eat at elportal.com.